When I was in high school, a man came to speak about Winston Churchill. Mostly, it was the usual mix of historical events and anecdotes. But what I remember best was how the talk ended. The speaker concluded by saying that if we were to remember one thing about Churchill, it should be that what made him so effective was his power to communicate. I didn't understand that at the time. Growing up, I had always heard about the importance of hard work, honesty, and other things, but never communication. Yet now, 30 years later, I've begun to understand what he meant. As Walter Isaacson argues, the ability to work together effectively is decisive. In order to make innovation possible, it's not enough to just come up with big ideas. You also need to work hard to communicate them clearly. Today we take electricity for granted. We switch on lights, watch TV, and enjoy connected devices without a second thought. It's hard to imagine an earlier age in which we had to use smoky, smelly candles in order to see at night and didn't have the benefit and convenience of basic household appliances. Michael Faraday, probably more than anyone else, transformed electricity from an interesting curiosity into the workhorse of the modern age. Yet Faraday was more than just a talented scientist. He was also a very effective communicator. As Nancy Forbes and Basil Mahon write, his scientific genius lay not simply in producing experimental results that were beyond everyone's understanding, but in explaining them too. This wasn't a natural talent. He worked hard at it, taking plentiful notes on his own lectures and those of others. The effort paid off. His regular lectures at the Royal Institution made him and the institution itself well known in the scientific world. A more recent genius was Richard Feynman. He won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1965, but also made important discoveries in biology and was an early pioneer of parallel and quantum computing. His talent, in fact, was so remarkable that even other elite scientists considered him to be a magician. Yet, like Faraday, Feynman was not content to hide his tricks. He insisted on teaching an introductory class for undergraduates, exceedingly rare for top academics. With his Brooklyn accent, ironic sense of humor, and talent for explaining things in practical, everyday terms, he was a student favorite. Perhaps the best example of how Feynman combined brilliance with exceptional communication skills was a talk he gave a few days after Christmas in 1959. Starting from a basic question about what it would take to shrink the Encyclopedia Britannica to fit on the head of a pin, he moved step by step until, in less than an hour, he had invented the field of nanotechnology. Schopenhauer once said that, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." Feynman was a genius who wanted us to see it too. We tend to treat knowledge and communication as two separate spheres. We act as if having the skills of an expert was a private matter, earned through quiet study. Communication, on the other hand, is often reduced to the realm of the social, a tool we use to interact with others of our species. Yet, as Wittgenstein argued decades ago, that position is logically unsound because it assumes that we are able to communicate to ourselves in a private language. In truth, we can't really know anything that we can't communicate. To assert that we can possess knowledge but are unable to explain what it is makes no sense. And so it is curious that we give communication little or no attention. Schools don't teach communication, they teach math, some science and history, but provide very little guidance on how to express ideas clearly. When we enter professional life, we rarely put serious effort toward expressing ourselves in a language that can be understood by those outside our own group. When our efforts and achievements fail to receive a sympathetic response, we are left wondering why. The fact is that, although it may be fashionable to say that our present era is an information age, we live in a communication age, and it's time we start taking it seriously.